Do you remember the last time you went to the cinema? Or the last time you hugged your friends? Close your eyes and try to imagine a world where COVID-19 does not exist. Feels good, right? If you're like me, or anyone else in the world for that matter, you'll be stuck inside your homes, isolated and away from the rest of the world. Going to the cinema has now been replaced by Netflix watch parties. It's even hard to imagine how our daily lives would be after all of this. The coronavirus is like this unseen barrier separating us from the other side, where we can go about our daily lives without fear. So, how do we get to the other side? Well, first, we need to understand what we're dealing with here. As of December 2, 2020, according to the World Health Organization, there are already a total of 62 million COVID-19 cases around the world. Of these number, 18 million are active cases and 44 million are recoveries. Meanwhile, the global death toll has already reached 1 million. In the Philippines, the total tally of COVID-19 cases is over 400,000 as of December 1, 2020, with around 25,000 active cases and a death toll of 8,000. With this, there is a 1.6% mortality rate and a 1.9 fatality rate. The overwhelming statistics basically tell us that we're dealing with a strong, lethal, and unseen enemy. But wait, how exactly did we get here? Let's go back, shall we? Last December 2019, the scientific community was alarmed when the Chinese government announced that a virus was spreading. In the following months, this virus has spread to other countries, thereby generating a world health crisis that we continue to face today. The virus responsible for this pandemic is a virus originating from horseshoe bats named Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, which causes the disease called COVID-19. The burning question is, how is this virus transmitted from one person to another? What exactly happens when a body is infected with this virus? According to the World Health Organization, the main mode of transmission appears to be through the respiratory droplets discharged by a contaminated person through coughing, sneezing, talking, singing, or close contact with this person. The virus then starts its journey as it attaches to a receptor in the lungs called ACE2 receptor and injects genetic material into the host's cell. The infected cell continues to copy and reassemble the original virus repeatedly until it reaches a point where the cell bursts and releases multiple copies of SARS-CoV-2 that can readily attack other healthy cells. This cycle continues as the person's immune system tries to combat the virus. Throughout this process, healthy cells are damaged. This is why some infected people go through the most common symptoms such as fever, dry cough, and tiredness, while others develop more serious symptoms such as difficulty in breathing and chest pains. So, you may ask, how can we stay safe amid this pandemic? How do we get to the other side? The answer is simple. Equip yourselves with the necessary information regarding this pandemic and always follow the precautionary measures included in the protection triad. Face mask, hand washing, and social distancing. First, always wear a face mask when going out on the streets. Face masks and face shields lessen the direct transmission of respiratory droplets from infected individuals. In fact, a recent study revealed that US states mandating the use of face masks had a bigger decline in COVID-19 growth rates than those who did not. Frequent hand washing also prevents community transmission of the virus. Wondering how this works? Since SARS-CoV-2 is enclosed with an oily lipid membrane that plays a vital function in the virus life cycle, the soap's hydrophobic tail can destroy this virus by attaching with the surrounding lipids and breaking down the membrane apart. leading to the death of the virus. Lastly, social distancing completes the protection triad. This requires a rather straightforward explanation, as observance of physical distancing will prevent or lessen the chance of respiratory droplets containing the virus from reaching another person. Taking all this into account, this pandemic also calls for a unified approach from the government, which includes the implementation of T3, Test, Trace, and Treat initiative in the Philippines. Test. The key in battling this pandemic is by identifying who among the population are infected with the virus. The COVID-19 testing involves the use of real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, which is considered as the gold standard. Now, how does RT-PCR work? First, a sample is collected from a person's throat or nose using a swab. This is then put in different buffer solutions to purify the sample and obtain only the RNA. An enzyme, reverse transcriptase, facilitates the reverse transcription of RNA to its complementary DNA sequence. The sample is then placed in a PCR machine where denaturation of the DNA sample is followed by annealing and extension. During the annealing phase, Tachman probe attaches itself to its complementary part in the DNA sequence, and a fluorescent dye is released. This fluorescence signifies the presence of SARS-CoV-2, hence giving a positive COVID-19 result. Trace. After an individual has been confirmed to have tested positive from COVID-19, proactive measures must also be taken in tracing and performing COVID-19 tests on people who have been in contact with the person who tested positive. Treat. Lastly, an infected individual is quarantined and treated with safe and minimal contact so as to avoid further COVID-19 transmission. Now, aside from the protection triad and T3, several mitigation strategies like travel bans and wildlife trade restrictions should also be implemented to minimize the risk of the transmission of the virus. Several policies have been enforced to minimize the risk of transmission, but do not suffice as countermeasures to the virus. We need something that will potentially end this mess for good. We need a long-term plan of action, and with the pandemic going on for months on end, a vaccine is our only hope. Vaccines are products that contains antigens, a toxin or other foreign substance which induces an immune response in the body to develop resistance to a disease. It acts as a preventive measure that can greatly reduce the risk of infection. With the use of vaccines, COVID-19 could be as ordinary as a common flu. But where are we now in terms of vaccine development? Thousands of scientists from different pharmaceutical companies around the world are racing against time to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. The Philippines has been eyeing several vaccine candidates developed by various companies. One type of vaccine that scientists have been exploring as a potential COVID-19 vaccine is mRNA vaccine. This vaccine contains mRNA that probes the body into creating compounds that represent the virus protein code, such as the coronavirus spike protein. In turn, the body generates an immune response to combat the virus. However, one misconception about this type of vaccine is that it can alter human DNA. Studies show that mRNA degrades quickly after a couple of days once it has been injected in the body. For this reason, most mRNA vaccines come in 2 doses. This practical approach will be easier to manufacture than traditional vaccines by eliminating the lengthy process of culturing inactivated pathogens. After months of staying inside, we are all longing for the human connection and social normality stripped from us by this virus. With nearly a year into this pandemic, it really is difficult to imagine a world where COVID-19 does not exist. Hard as it may be, it is possible. We will get to the other side. With the recent development of promising vaccines, there is finally a glimmer of hope that tells us we may be nearing the end of this pandemic. However, there is still a long way to go before this pandemic actually ends. Until then, care must be taken as these vaccines should not be treated as the only solution to this pandemic.
Hence, we encourage everyone to remember the protection triad, face masks, hand washing, and social distancing, as well as T3, test, trace, and treat. With these protocols and the efforts of various pharmaceuticals, a world without COVID-19 might just turn into reality. See you on the other side.